We made it. We're here for Power Hour. We have a special guest. We have a special guest here for Power Hour. If you guys are listening on the podcast, Megan has the cutest little baby that she just had. He's so cute. But that's not what we're here to talk about. I'm like, talk about ADHD squirrels. Anytime there's babies on the mastermind calls too, I'm like, my brain is like, squirrel. We have to talk about that baby.
Of course.
It's like business coaching. No, I need to talk to this person with this child. But we're here to talk about building a business that works for your brain. And I'm really excited to have Megan here. Megan is a mastermind student of mine, and she also coaches inside Creator Camp and has her own businesses and like all the things going on. So why don't you introduce yourself for people that don't know you, and we'll get going.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Megan Griffith. I run a couple businesses at any given time. Kind of depends. Generally speaking, I work with autistic folks, ADHD folks, ADHDers, and people who are what I call neurocurious. So like people who are exploring and like, I think I have ADHD, but I don't know. So I work with a lot of those folks. And a lot of the work that we do is based on being more productive, getting more done without hating yourself in the process. Because as Faith likes to say, if beating yourself up worked, it would have worked by now.
And why don't you really quickly give people like, what is like your number one hack for if you want to get something done and you keep putting it off? We were talking about this on the live earlier in the mastermind where you're like, I should be doing this and I should be doing this. And you just keep putting it off and putting it off. Like, how do you actually walk to people through the process of like, how do I actually go from like, I should be doing it to actually doing it? What is give us the secret, Megan?
Okay. So the first secret I'm going to give is how to not do it, actually. If there's something you're struggling to do, there's a chance, especially if you have autism, ADHD, or another type of neurodivergence, there's a chance you actually can't do it, or that doing it takes so much more out of you than it would for other people. And that's super valid and okay. So for example, we are working on getting these beautiful babies into daycare so that I can do calls without babies. And to do that, I don't know if you guys have ever put a kid in daycare before, but there's about a bajillion pieces of paper you have to go through and sign and read and approve. And oh my gosh, I had the paperwork for probably a week and a half. And finally, my husband was like, Megan, do you just need me to do it? And I'm like, no, I can do it. He's like, no, I'm not judging you. I'm asking you, do you need help? And I was like, oh, shit, I do need help. Yes, I do. So yeah, my first tip is if you can delegate something that's really giving you that hard of a time, do it. Automate it. AI, hire a VA, ask your partner or partners, do what you got to do. Don't do the thing if it's that hard. Now, that's not always going to be an option, but I want to make sure people know that sometimes that is an option. Sometimes we forget that's an option.
Kelsey made it. We got the link. I was like, I knew you were trying. I had a feeling. I was like, I know that she's coming. I was like, she has to have some tech difficulty, but we got it sorted. The little team chat behind the scenes has been like, but we're all here. So, okay, we're gonna get back into productivity tips. Megan's already given us some good tips. Let's let Kelsey introduce herself. She finally was able to get on with our little tech trouble we were having. So
Yeah.
everybody know who you are, what you do.
Sure. And funny that I am usually the tech person and I always seem to have the most tech issues, but that is what it is and we go with the flow, right? So hi everyone, my name is Kelsey Silver. I am also referred to as the Neuros Spicy CEO, but you can call me Kels. I am the founder and owner of the Neuros Spicy CEO, where we take a look at the operations and streamlining businesses for neurodivergent entrepreneurs. I have a 10-year background in corporate consulting. I'm also a licensed marriage and family therapist, plus a MIT certified data analyst, and the list goes on, but you don't need my CV to know that my passion is around helping neurodivergent entrepreneurs streamline their business in a way that works for their brain so that they can actually have the energy left to live life.
I love that. I'm so excited to talk to both of you. So Megan, you were talking about delegating. I know like one of the things I hear from people all the time is like, but like, that's not possible for me. I don't have a husband or I don't have a team. So like for people that maybe their first thought is like delegating is not possible, do you have any creative ways to delegate at all? Or
So, have you ever heard the phrase of like, oh, well, that's future Megan's problem? You know? Now, what we don't want to do is just kick our responsibilities down the line until we create a disaster for ourselves. But it is possible to delegate to your future self. There are problems that don't need solved immediately, believe it or not. Like
probably most
ADHDers are
of
going to
them,
be like,
right?
what do you mean? You know?
Yeah,
ADHD
that's
is
a
so
really good
focused on
point.
now or not
Right.
now. And it's like sometimes it's not now.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's really important when we're talking about building businesses too, is like not every problem you have has to be solved now, and being able to identify like what does need to be done now. And then the other things, I often will write down a to-do list that has like 1,000 things on it for the day, but then I look at that list and I'm like, but what are the things that have to be actually done today? And a lot of that stuff gets delegated next week, next month, sometime in the future and into future self. What about you, Kelsey? Do you have creative tips for delegating if you're like need things off your list, but maybe you don't have a team or a husband to delegate things to?
Yeah, absolutely. So my like whole signature framework is around tech, team, and talent. And if you don't have a tech if you don't have team, right, tech is on your payroll. And so I delegate to technology a lot. I did it in my corporate career, but I do it in my business a lot and for my clients, because everyone thinks, or not everyone, let me not generalize. A lot of people go into purchasing technology as, oh, this is a thing that's going to help me do X. But in reality, I like to talk about tech being on your payroll. It's another employee for you. It's another person that will learn and do what you need it to do. And I always also say that you've got a Neuros Spicy tax that comes with purchasing technology, right? Because you're either going to get distracted, or you're going to forget what it can do, or you're going to purchase something because it was shiny. But that's okay. You build that into your budget and you move forward with what can I give to technology? What are things that I do that I hate? What are things that are emotionally draining? What's energetically draining? What's not within my wheelhouse that I'd have to spend a lot of time learning how to do? And how can I delegate that to a piece of technology?
Yeah, and I know too, like I work with a lot of beginner online business owners, and the tech can be really overwhelming for people. But I'll just add, like, keep the technology stuff very simple when you're starting. Like a lot of people are trying to build these like really, really complex things, and it's like, yeah, that's nice, but a lot of times they don't work that well. You don't really have a good sales system for your business. Your messaging is off. Like building these really
Yeah.
complicated tech stuff isn't really going to help you. But I always tell people just start with just templating your email. So if somebody asks you a question, just save your response. Like, so you
Exactly.
use responses. Like, think of simple things, like simple ways to use technology, or start with just learning one program. The other thing I'll see people do is they're like, I'm going to learn like
ClickUp and Asana and Notion and
and Asana. Well, and I'm going to also learn how to build a web page, and I'm going to learn how to do a sales page, and I'm going to launch a podcast. And it's like, all right, let's just learn like one program at a time here.
and learn it deeply. Like there's something very rewarding about learning the thing that you're going to use very deeply. So like if you're going for a Kajabi, great, Kajabi can do all the things, but it can only do all the things if you're actually going to dedicate the time, or have someone who can dedicate the time to do it deeply. Otherwise, it's just another piece of tech that's going to sit on the shelf. Like we all talk about our digital bookshelf with our courses that we've never touched and all of that stuff. Tech is the same thing. Not to call anybody out, but you've got tech that's sitting on your bookshelf collecting dust. Megan, I see you
Oh
laughing
my
at me.
goodness. Yeah, it's just so pertinent right now. I am switching finally from the hobgoblin amalgamation of tech to like an all-in-one, and it's amazing. It's so
Yeah.
much work, but it's amazing.
So I found the same thing for a lot of the clients that I work with. Particularly, it's the way that our neurodivergent brains work. I think having an all-in-one relieves some of that pressure. I use an all-in-one called Nurture Lead. It's based on Go High Level, and it has everything I need in it. It's my CRM, it's my tagging, it's my automations, and it's my email structure. And I just don't have to think about trying to connect everything. There's something very calming about No, I just have to Google for the one program that I'm working on. I don't have to Google how to connect Zapier and everything like that. And I'm a tech, like I have a background in technology, and I still hate having to Google how to do the thing, right? When it's 10,000 different things. So I have noticed a trend, particularly with people with brains like ours, that an all-in-one just it sets a calm and it sets a cadence that you can work towards and you can learn it deeply.
What tips do you guys have for like the procrastination? Because I'm sure I'm not the only one that does this, but there's days like I come in the office and I like crush, right? And I'm like, for those that listen that don't know, I have ADHD and I'm pretty newly diagnosed. I've only been had a diagnosis for like maybe a year or so now. Um, but since you guys are here, I'm gonna pick these experts' brains, right? I'm like, some days I come in the office, I crush, I sit down, it's like I get like an incredible amount of work done. And then other days I like sit in here and I like think about like I could do this, I should do that. I don't really want to do any of it. And like I will like procrastinate work. I'm really bad about calling my assistant Kelsey up on Skype. And then I'm like bothering the team and I'm like bothering Matt, but I'm not really like working. I'm just kind of like, I don't know, messing around more or less
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the business.
You're dabbling. You're just dabbling.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do a
so
lot of
I'll
like dabbling or dabblepreneurship.
I use the 3-2-1 method and I use a piece of technology. So I'll go through both. So the 3-2-1 method is 3 things I have to do, 2 things I need to do, and 1 thing I want to do. And so what that lets me do is it's 3 things I must do. Like it's the 3 things that are going to push the business forward that are due today or that are due very, very soon. And it can be small things. Like literally it can be make sure you add the button to your sales page. 3 things I must absolutely have to do. 3 things that are important that I mean, 2 things that, you know, I should get done. They may not be urgent, but they're 2 things that are going to help me in the future. They're gonna set future Kelsey up for success, and then 1 thing that's gonna be emotionally or some other way rewarding to me. And that can be, the dabbling, right? And so I give myself ultimate permission that at least 1 thing on my to-do list is going to be personally rewarding for me, is gonna make me happy, is gonna be that little dopamine hit, and I do them in that order. Some people also call it like eat the frogs, right? You eat the frogs at the beginning. You do all that yucky work, those 3 things you must absolutely have to do first, and then you get to work down so that you're ending the day on this really rewarding piece. And then the piece of technology I use is an app called Use Motion, and it's perfect for me. It doesn't work for every brain, but for me, it's a project management system, kind of like Asana, but it coordinates with my calendar, and it also has a built-in scheduler. And so I put all of my tasks in there with all of their due dates, and it plops it in those tasks into the white space in my calendar. So I don't have this symptom of staring at at my to-do list going, what am I going to do next? I don't really want to do that.
That is
No,
the
I don't
kiss
want
of
to do
death
that.
for me. If I come in this office with no plan, it's like game over. It's
Mhm.
like I always have to have like my top 2 or 3 things. A lot like lately I've just been doing 2, but I'm like if I sit down at this desk without like a clear objective, it is like and especially I think people have this misconception too that like you have a team and like oh it's everything is like easier. I'm like no, there's just like more people asking me for things. It's like
Truth.
more easy. It's just easier to be distracted.
Truth.
Just like
In my
more
corporate
emails, more messages, more stuff to deal with. Everybody's needing things, it feels like.
At the
Um,
height of my corporate career, I had a team of 5. Oh my god, it was so easy to get distracted. It was
it's like
so
it's
easy to have,
yeah,
like,
I
soggy
think when you have ADHD, it's like it's hard to manage a team sometimes because you're like, yeah, let me do this. And then the next thing you know, I'm like, well, what did I do today? I don't know.
It's 3 o'clock and I got nothing to Yep.
Yeah, I got absolute yes, that happens a lot too. I want to ask you about the dopamine hit. So explain to us, like, or maybe for people that don't know, I know dopamine is really related to ADHD.
Yeah.
What is it and like how does it work in our brains? Like what's the deal, Kelsey? Tell
Yeah.
us what's the deal with dopamine?
So the really simplified version is dopamine's your happy chemical. It's the thing that keeps you motivated, keeps you excited. But particularly for those of us with ADHD, but it does apply to other flavors of Neuros Spicy as well. Because neurodivergent, just to like backtrack a quick second, when I talk neurodivergent, I'm coming from a therapeutic background. So I'm talking about uh, PTSD, I'm talking about autism, I'm talking about Down syndrome, traumatic brain injuries. All of those things fall under this umbrella called neurodivergence. It just means you think other. You think differently than the norm. And it was a term coined way back in the 80s. So it's actually a very, very large umbrella. So a lot of people could technically identify as neurodivergent should they so choose. But for those of us specifically with ADHD and other combined comorbid, if you're going to get technical disorders, dopamine is just your happy chemical. It's your hit that keeps you engaged in the task that says, yes, I want to do this. A lot of us get dopamine hits from planning, but then the dopamine wears off by the time we have to execute. Or we get dopamine from choosing our brand colors. And then the dopamine wears off when we go to actually put them in in Canva in our little brand doodad. And we keep getting these hits, but it's it's every time you need a hit, just like with all things, right? You need a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And so I saw a post on social media once that was, hey, all you overachieving, people pleasing girls who would read until 2 a.m. before high school. How's scrolling through social media going for you? And it's because those, right, Megan? So it's because way back then, we would escape and we would get our dopamine hits from reading or for other activities. And now social media has replaced that dopamine hit because it's faster, it's more, but we have to keep using it. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I definitely struggle with social media addiction for sure. And I was gonna make like a reel about this, but I actually spent like, I don't know, like 30 or 40 minutes yesterday making my smartphone into a dumb phone because I was just like,
Yes.
this is out of control. I need help.
I have
So
serious parental permissions on my own phone because it was impacting my relationship with my daughter as well. Like I would have my phone, I would check it. I wouldn't be on it while she was next to me, but I would check it all the time. And I did not like that feeling. Like, sure, she's watching Little Mermaid. I don't need to be actively engaging with her, but I wasn't really present. And the same thing was happening when I would try to do a task in my business. So, like, combined on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, my phone gives me 20 minutes a day.
whoa, I don't think I'm that fast, but
You have no idea the kind of decision making you can get done
when your
when
phone's
you
gonna lock you out.
yeah. Now I can add 10 minutes, but I can only add 10 minutes once, and then it literally locks me out, and I have to put a passcode in if I want to make it further. But it was because, like, I know that I'm gonna check the mastermind Facebook group, I'm gonna check 2 other groups, and I'm gonna check my own group, and I'm gonna do it in teeny little spurts 2 or 3 times a day, and that's it. That's it. No more.
Yeah, that's very, very good. Yeah, I just had to make like certain settings where it was like it's tricky too because I do need to be able to go on social media for
Absolutely.
work. So it's not like I don't want to delete the apps, like I want to have them on there, but then I want to like not be scrolling all the time.
So I've
So
got a tip for you.
yeah, give me all the tips.
If most of your need to be on social media is to ensure that you're responding to comments and DMs, download the Business Manager app from Facebook because it connects
Ooh.
your Facebook and your Instagram, and you don't have to do parental controls on that one because all it lets you do is comment back or answer DMs.
Damn, I didn't know that. That's a really good tip. I don't respond to any stuff on social media, but I'm still glad to know that though
Yeah,
for my students and stuff because I
because
didn't know that.
it prevents the scroll, right? Because
I'm gonna
now
post
obviously if
that
you're
in
doing
creator camp because
research.
we just had a discussion about that where I was like, I think being on social media as a creator versus a consumer are very, very different. But
Mhm.
because it's so addicting, it's easy for me to start using it like a consumer all the time. And I'm like, no, I want to be a creator, right? I
Yep,
put stuff out here. I don't want to be a consumer of it necessarily.
yep.
And that's like it's a hard line to walk. But I didn't know that about the comments. If I still was responding to comments, and if you're a small creator, you should, right? I used to
Mhm.
respond to like every person that would message me. I would literally make like a live stream video answering every question I got for years. So
Yeah.
I think it is important to respond to comments. And so if you guys, that's a great tip for you guys that need to do comments and find it. I think all of us, even if you're not neurodivergent, like social media is still very addicting. Like I hear people all the time talking about social media addiction that maybe don't have neurodivergence. So that's a
Yeah.
great tip. I did not know that. And is that's free?
Yeah.
It's the
It
and it's
comes with your
Facebook
business
Manager. What
page.
is it called?
It's the Facebook Business Manager app. It's on your
Business
phone.
Manager app.
Yep, and
Okay.
it connects your Facebook page, your Facebook group if you have one, and Instagram all into one app, and everything comes through there. And so you can just respond right within this very basic, very uninteresting interface. that's just like a quick little messenger piece. And then the other tip, obviously, is to pre-schedule your content if you can. That way you're not in the app trying to put the content out. And so you don't get that temptation. It's a lot about managing temptation. Part of my therapeutic work was in substance abuse, and so like counseling. And so a lot of it I just apply. What do we help our clients with relapse prevention? It's the same kind of thing for myself.
Really funny because I use my social work stuff in the mastermind all
Right?
the time. And I feel like our business coaching calls often feel like support group calls.
Truth. Yep, absolutely.
It's just like, well, we all have human brains, it's good things for all of us to know. So what tips do you guys have for somebody who's like, I want to have a business, but I've been dabbling around. I cannot get this thing off the ground. I'm always changing my niche. I can't make any progress. And they just feel like they have this vision for the life they want. And there's like all of this steps you need to take, right? Between like where they are now. And they just feel overwhelmed and stuck and they're not really moving forward. What tips do you guys have for people to actually start moving towards having a profitable business?
Megan, I know you may have some quiet, so yeah.
Yeah, I gotta take you off mute. Okay.
Okay, hi.
I forgot you can't see that. You don't have the button.
No,
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Yeah. So I think what I would remind them of is, when you're in one of those parking lots that has the teeny tiny parking spaces and the aisles are teeny tiny and you end up having to do like a 15-point turn to get out. Every 15-point turn you do is a step closer to getting out. It feels like you're in the same spot, but you're not. And so I think
a good way of thinking about it.
I think this tendency a lot of ADHDers have to change their niche all the time, to start over. It can feel like you're starting over from base, but you're not. You're not. You have learned skills in the previous iteration. Reiterating is how we become better. I think ADHDers are actually better at reiterating than non-ADHDers in some capacities. And so like, if we can embrace it and give ourselves compassion and say, hey, you're not fucking up, you're actually doing a good job, that's going to carry you so much further than like, nope, I can't make a move until it's the right one. That's never going to happen.
That's a good point. And I think a lot of what's so hard about entrepreneurship, it's like, can you let go of what we're taught about like doing things in the right order and doing things step by step and that everything's supposed to be linear? Like, can you like let that idea die? And can you kind of be okay with what you're saying, like those like little adjustments and little turns where it maybe looks like you're not going, but it eventually is all going to line up and you will be on the path you want to be, right? What about you, Kelsey?
I'm gonna say something fairly similar, but it's just a little worded a little bit differently because we all absorb things a little bit differently. So, one of the sort of accepted project management and change management concepts out there is called a PDSA cycle. It's a plan, do, study, act. And all it means is you're going to take one thing you want to change. You're going to make it teensy tiny change. And you're going to see how it goes. And then the next time you go to make that change, next time you want to change something, you make a teensy tiny little change and then you see how it goes. And so this is very similar to those 15-point turns. Every time you alter something, you go in with an open mind and you say, it's okay. If I'm changing this, that's fine. I just need to make sure I understand why I changed it, right? So don't do it on a whim. Don't do it from fear. Don't do it from imposter syndrome. But why I changed it. And then how am I going to know if the change worked, right? If it feels better, if it's more in line with who you are, if it helps support the life you want to live, if it is more exciting to you, all of those are perfectly valid reasons as to why you made the change. And so for our brains, giving ourselves the permission to dabble, like I use the word dabble a lot because our brains need that. It is that dopamine hit, helps us stay engaged. And what I tell my clients a lot is that, so I throw out the business plan and I bring in the strategy, right? And a lot of times when we plan, we get really excited about the plan and then we can't execute. But when you have a strategy, it's like you're bowling with the bumpers up. Because even if you bowl sideways, the bumpers are going to kind of keep you in there and you're still going to make it to the end. All that matters is you're still going to make it to the end. It doesn't matter that it took it 20 minutes to get to the end of the bowling. I'm a terrible bowler, by the way. It doesn't matter how long it took you to get to the end of the bowling lane. If you have a strategy, meaning what's your primary lead gen, what's the primary thing you're selling, how are you selling it, and how are you going to deliver it? That's it. 4 things. There's 4 things that make your business. And so if you can stay within those boundaries, then it doesn't matter what choice you make, what changes you make, how often you change. You're still going to end up at the end of that bowling alley.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I have to ask you guys, I've been seeing this stuff on the gram lately, and it's like ADHD is your superpower. Like, what do you guys think about that? Is it a superpower? Is it hard? Is it good? Like what is the deal?
I've got a statistic for you.
I would love to hear what you guys think about that though, seriously.
Yeah, I've got an actual statistic for you.
Okay.
Neurodivergent individuals are 3 times more likely to become entrepreneurs than our neurotypical counterparts.
Why do you think that is?
So statistically speaking, the view is split. So this is from like actual studies that have been done. To some extent, it's because we reject the 9 to 5. All that means is that our brains aren't wired for that corporate structure. I counter that because, I am at corporate at an executive level and still work. So, fine. And I'm not that special. There's plenty of people that are at that high level. So that I always kind of question that we're not made for the 9 to 5, because guess what? When you're running your business, it's still a business. So my theory, and what tends to be backed up by a lot of the studies, is that because of our ingenuity, because our brain thinks differently, we're better capable and better wired to think out of the box, which is required for successful entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
That's my personal theory.
Yeah, I would agree with that. What about you, Megan? What do you think about that?
I sort of have the opposite point of view. I
love it. Yeah.
Not necessarily opposite. Opposite feels too extreme. I think that ADHD is a neutral trait, which means it's sort of like having red hair. Like there's good and bad things about it. Yeah, you stand out in a crowd and sometimes you don't want to if you've got bright red hair, but also like bright red hair is very beautiful. And anyway, so ADHD specifically though is like, yeah, like maybe we're more likely to be entrepreneurs. And yeah, there's the question of like, is that because we're better at it? Or is it because it's the only job that's accessible to a lot of us? So there's that. But also I think it does us a disservice to pretend that ADHD isn't also a neurodevelopmental disability, which is what it is categorically. And like, I think people are really afraid of the word disability. And I understand, I was too for a long time. I still kind of am. But it's been really helpful learning about disability justice and the idea that disability is also a neutral trait.
Yeah.
Like our society paints disability as like the worst thing. Like it's not uncommon for people to tell disabled people to their faces that they would rather be dead than have their disability. Like that's a common occurrence.
Yep.
Like, holy shit. So I think it's just important to remember that disability is part of a natural diversity in the human experience. And I like the word disability rather than differently abled or something like that, because disability is a more accurate descriptor, in my opinion, because there are abilities I don't have because of my ADHD. I do not perceive time in a linear fashion. I don't. There is no different ability about it. It's just a lack. And that's okay. It's not a bad thing. So I don't personally love the ADHD as superpower identity, but something I'm learning is other people do. And if that works for them, hell yeah, more power to you. I love it. Just don't put it on me necessarily.
Yeah, that's a really good, I love how you said that. That's a really good way of putting it. Like that might work for you and that's awesome. And I love that for you, but like, it's not for me. And I think when I saw it, I was like, I don't know if that's for me. I was like, I don't know how I feel about that.
And I think the same applies
to think about it.
I think the same applies to Neuros Spicy. Like it's literally in my business name, but a lot of people find it very irreverent and very disrespectful. And that's okay. You're just not my, like you're just not gonna vibe with the way that I see my neurodivergence. And that's 100% valid. And you should protect yourself and keep yourself safe in the way that you need to keep yourself safe. But I like the playfulness of it because for me, I'm a comic book nerd and I'm a high fantasy nerd, right? And so for me, I like the term superpower because Superman had kryptonite. So it's not an exclusive thing for me. But 100%, it does not need to be the same for you. And I think that's very important because, like, you'll notice that while I've said ADHD, I haven't actually called out all of my Neuros Spicy flavors, right? I tend not to. But Megan, in a lot of your copy, you're like super, super beautifully specific about what you have and you really own that. And I'm saying that 100% is a good thing. So For me, like I have a neurodivergence plus mental health plus physical health. It's just too long of a list and I don't bother. And plus, that doesn't define me in that way. I prefer to call myself neurospicy. But it's the same in the queer community, right? Like it's for like I identify as queer as well, but some people hate the word queer. Like some people think it's very irreverent. So the language you use has to be right for you, and you have to be who you are in your business. You can't be something other, because then A, you're just perpetuating it, and B, no one's going to vibe with someone who's ingenuine. I went on a very big tangent. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go there.
No, that was all really good. I thought it was really thoughtful.
Yeah, just a quick note on the term neurospicy and other playful terms for neurodivergence. Something, again, if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. Please don't use it. It's fine. But my perspective on why I do enjoy the term neurospicy, why I do enjoy TikToks that sometimes make light of our neurodivergencies and stuff like that. The reason I find it enjoyable is because I think it's incredibly reductionist to boil disability down to only the sucky parts.
Yep.
Like what? So all disabled people are just supposed to be miserable all the time.
Yeah.
There's no levity to be found ever. Like,
Right.
come on, we're people. Sometimes we can't do shit and it's a little funny. Like, I don't know.
The fact that my ketchup bottle got into the freezer is hilarious to me. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't know where the
I
ketchup
can
bottle
see
was.
humor in that, right? I love that. What do you guys think about? Sometimes I feel like we are taught all the time about how to be good employees. We go to school, it's like the 9 to 5, everything's very structured, especially in entrepreneurship. Right now, I feel like, again, the like hustle culture stuff is kind of coming back around. It kind of swung the other way where it was like, we're all in flow. And then it's like this other extreme of like, get up at 2 a.m. or I don't know, sacrifice your life and like only work. And like, but I think it's interesting because like, what do you think about, we all want to have these businesses, but then I think sometimes we spend a lot of time being like, well, I'm not doing it right though. I should be in my office. I should be working between these hours. I should be more focused. I shouldn't be dabbling around. And I think we spend a lot of time making ourselves really wrong in our businesses. Do you have any examples where that's happened to you, and any tips for people that are doing that, of like, how can you make like your brain and the way you like to do things feel like it's okay when we're kind of taught this is how you should do it. Your butt should be at your desk 9 to 5, and like you should be working very hard, and you should not be having any fun, and it should all be very serious. And like, what would be an experience you've had with that? And do you have any tips for anybody that might be feeling like I'm doing it all wrong and I'm like messing it all up somehow?
This book.
Megan has a book. What is it say?
It's called We're All Neurodiverse by Sunny Jane Wise.
Oh, okay.
It's about neuronormativity. Neuronormativity is the idea that there is a normal brain, which is like kind of weird if you start to think about it. But this normal brain is based on patriarchy. It's based on white supremacy. It's based on capitalism. It's based on this 9 to 5 energy, right? And the reason we feel so wrong is not a personal mindset issue. This is how we were taught to feel. You were taught to feel this way about yourself. This was not some accident or you're not confident enough. This was intentional. The system is fucking you on purpose. Like, sorry, but it is. And I think when you're neurodivergent, you have to address these things in a way that people who maybe have like able-minded privilege don't, like, sometimes they can see past it or they can ignore it because it doesn't affect them quite as much, or they may not realize how profoundly it affects them. And that's why I love the title, We're All Neurodiverse, because it doesn't matter if you're neurotypical. This stuff affects you too. This hurts you too. And so, amazing book. Sunny Jane's the best. But yeah, I think if you feel like you're doing it wrong, start examining the influences in your life. Don't just examine yourself, because you're probably not the problem.
Yeah. What about you, Kelsey?
So I have to often separate my personal upbringing from my therapeutic background, from my business experience, because I've got kind of these 3 different perspectives. And when I really examine them, very much like Megan's talking about, there's no wrong way to do business unless you're harming others. So as long as you are coming from a consent-based sales place, and not to say that all sales that isn't consent-based is wrong, but this is just my personal opinion, right? As long as you're coming from a consent-based sales, you are not telling people that they're horrible, you're not being, racist, homophobic, all those, that little list. As long as you're not harming someone, there's no wrong way to do business. And literally my entire business is based on you have to build one that works for you, that works with the life you want to have, that, there's also this strange concept that particularly those of us who identify as women, that we shouldn't have a business because of the money, which is a very interesting concept to me, because guess what? The reason I want to have my business is so that I can go do fun things with my daughter. But which in and of itself is also a patriarchy piece, because I am a mother. And so there's that layer of, well, I did my duty for, for society, me. And, so for me, it's very much, I love that phrase from you, Megan, questioning where those influences are coming from that tell you that you're wrong. And then from my own upbringing, it's that good girl syndrome. Now that's very, gender specific, but I'm going to stick with that phrase just because it's very recognizable. It's the good girl syndrome of, if it's not like everyone else, it must be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And one of our strengths tends to be that we're not like everyone else. As such, that's a good thing. And as such, that means that your business is a good thing. And so sometimes it's literally about tricking your brain. I don't know if you've ever seen someone who is petrified of going up on stage. There's a demo of it where you can, if you tell your brain out loud, I'm excited to be here, I'm excited to say these things, the feeling that I'm identifying as nervousness is actually excitement. Your brain literally switches. I have watched people go through this exercise and go from shut down and petrified to get up on stage, owning the room. Play games with your brain, trick your brain. You absolutely have control over how you think about things,
That's
and
so
thus,
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
psychology is fun.
I had this happen with like a couple little stupid things in my life. They were just like little things, but I just realized like I had this whole story about how I never finished books. So I would buy books and I would like read part of them and then I would never finish them. And I started telling myself like, oh, I shouldn't buy any more books till I like finish them. And I really need to I really got to like start picking up a book and finishing it. And it was like, I made this like into a huge problem. And then one day I was just kind of like, why?
Why are we telling ourselves that
Why
story?
can't I just fucking read a couple chapters out of the book and like move along if I want? Like, is that really such a big problem? And it sounds so silly, but it actually really like took a lot of shame off of me. Like I really felt like I was like should be doing it different and bad. The way I was doing it was wrong or something. Reading books is so silly, but it's like little things like that for me have been really big lately, where I'm just like, what if I just let myself do that and it's fine?
Ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Yeah, I'm like, what if I just read a couple chapters out of every book? Is that like the worst crime in the world? Or I like to change. I know you're like, pick one system, and I'm with you on that. But I like changing productivity systems. Like I like learning new ones. I like having new ones. I like I've used like ClickUp, Asana, I've used Trello, I've used all of them, Notion, everything. And I just was like, finally, I was like, you just have to use Asana. That's just what you have to do. And I was like making myself do that. And then I was like, why? Like, if I want to use, right now I'm using Amazing Marvin, which is great if you have ADHD because you can change it. It'll mimic all these different systems into like different skins. So right now I have mine set up like Things 3, which is an app, but you could have it set up like Asana or Todoist or whatever, and it will just reconfigure your stuff into different layouts, which is really good for me. But I just like was like, what if I just let myself every month pick a new app and I just put my stuff in it? Is it like really like that big of a deal? And I just came to a place where I was like, you know what? I don't mind spending my time setting one up to have the excitement of the new app. And like I am fortunate enough I'm in a place in my business where I can afford to spend time doing stuff like that. And I don't do it like every other day or anything, you guys. But I just was like, what if that's not such a big deal that I like using a new tool and that's like exciting to me? Like, what if I just let myself do that? And that was like such a big relief when I made that decision. So I think sometimes it's like we think it's like these huge things, but for me, it's really been like the small things I realized I was shaming myself around.
Let's focus on that word shame, because as soon as you start feeling shame, that's when you have to start questioning everything, because there is no shame in business. Again, as long as you're not hurting other people or yourself, there shouldn't be much shame in business. And so investigating what's happening when you start saying shame, when you start feeling shame, is a really valuable tool.
Yeah, and it's such a fun time of entrepreneurship because there's all this new technology and new ways to do things, and we get to like invent kind of new ways of being in business, which I think is interesting. Megan, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, as someone who had a therapist once tell me that I have a shame-based personality, whatever the hell that is supposed to mean.
That is so,
that is
so intense. That is such an intense.
Shall we dive in?
Very deeply familiar with shame. One could say it's a cornerstone of who I am. It's becoming less so. And part of it is knowing that I'm neurodivergent, knowing I'm ADHD and autistic. That's been so utterly freeing for me. And so like, oh, I'm not doing it wrong. I'm doing it autistically. I'm not doing it wrong. I'm doing it the ADHD way. That's fine.
That's a really good way of thinking about it.
It's a beautiful way to own it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been great.
I want you guys to tell everybody just a little bit about what you do, if you have something free they can get or any resources you want to share, where we can stalk you on social media. This was such a good conversation. I feel like we could talk about this all day, but if they want to continue these conversations with you, tell them where they can do that.
Megan, you can go ahead.
Everybody always gets shy at this. Everybody's always like the whole time while on the show, just like, pop, pop, pop. And then I'm like, okay, plug your things. Everybody's like,
well, the email you sent out said extroverts, be kind to the introverts, make sure they get a chance to speak. And so I was like, I better shut up every now and again. I like to talk. Okay. Yeah. So here's the thing. I'm going through a rebrand at the moment, but where you can find me currently is called neurodivergentmagic.com, neurodivergent_magic on Instagram. All of that will be changing shortly. So if the word neurodivergent is like kind of too broad for you, especially because I do tend to work mostly with ADHDers and autistic folks, and I don't love the misuse of the word neurodivergent to mean ADHD and autistic. That's part of the reason for the rebrand. Anyway, more than you needed to know. That's where you can find me. On my website, I actually have a link to 3 free trainings all about executive dysfunction and like how to get shit done. So completely free. I want to say each one's at least 20 minutes. So you get, I think, an hour's worth of training from me totally.
That sounds great. And it's just how to get things done. I think everybody wants to get more stuff done.
Yeah.
Right? Nice. So we'll put the links for that in the show notes, and we also do blog posts for these for you guys that are watching the video. And so we'll put all the links up on the website too. And then what about you, Kelsey?
So kelseysilver.com, and right, I make it easy for myself, trust me. So kelseysilver.com, right at the top of the screen, you can see a little clicky button to download my Find and Fix Your Biggest Operational Roadblock in Under an Hour. It walks you through all the steps to identify where your biggest either emotional, operational, like whatever's holding you back from taking that next step in your business, how to identify it, and then some suggestions on steps you can take based on the kind of roadblock you're looking at. And then I've got a bunch of other free trainings on there as well. But that'll pop you onto my list, and I usually twice a week put out some really fun stuff about actionable tips you can do and implement like right after you read the email to actually streamline your business, automate it. I talk a lot about different ways you can automate your business and make it simpler for you, because my whole thing is that I operate my entire business between naps with my daughter. So that is the only time I work, is when she is asleep.
Amazing.
Because why am I going to build a business that goes exactly against the reason that I built my business, which was to spend more time with her? And so that's the best way to pop onto my list, so you hear from me regularly. But I also hang out on Instagram. It's Kelsey E. Silver. So you don't have to stick an E in between, but you can find me in the DMs and all that stuff. And if you want to be part of a Facebook group that's all about Neuros Spicy CEOs, you can join my Neuros Spicy CEO Facebook group, and we hang out there and have some fun stuff. Good. Yeah, and I'm doing a bunch of free trainings in February, March. So.
Okay. So everybody go in that Facebook group. And then Megan, are you on Instagram? Where should people stalk you on the socials? You just want people to go to the website, or do you want to shout out your Instagram?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. My Instagram right now is at neurodivergent_magic.
Okay, cool. So we'll put all of their links in the show notes. They're both obviously like a wealth of knowledge. And I think both of you just do such great, important work. I respect you guys so much. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be here and share this with everybody. I'm excited for it to go up on the podcast and to email it out. This was so fun. I love talking to you both. It was great.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll see
thank
you guys in the
you.
mastermind.
See you.
Bye, guys.